one of the things that we needed in a caring society was more connection between government and people, because it seemed like the people with power, with money, with connections had access to government, and that the everyday people really had been shut out of that process, and that was contributing to the hopelessness. And that the connection between government and people really needed to come from a grassroots type of movement, that it had to be ordinary people that were banding together and stepping up and saying, this is our vision, and this is how we want to move forward, and if this is a government of the people, by the people, for the people, then we are the people. That was one idea, was that we had to have more responsive government and that we needed a more participatory democracy. And then the other one kind of speaks to the economic part, is that if everybody contributes, even if their contribution is not maybe recognized as traditionally valuable, that it's still their contribution, and that different people can contribute in different ways, and not everybody can go out and have like a six-figure job. It's just not going to work. But that when everybody contributes, that they really should have their basic needs paid for, and that we needed to really honor everybody as valuable to society, or at least a contributor to society, even if it's a non-traditional kind of contribution, and that when they contribute, that they should have their needs met. And so we came out of this idea that the social contract had really been broken in a number of different ways, and that it really needed to be fixed. And we talked about it in a lot of different ways and came up with those two, with government and with economics, and talking about how we can have a more intimate, responsive, inclusive democracy that really came down to the grassroots level, as opposed to was being directed by politicians and the political agenda. That we connect with our neighbors, because really grassroots starts at home. So we also talk about families, which didn't make it up here, but that you start with your family, you start with your neighbors, and you begin to build a vision with everybody, so that everybody has a voice, everybody feels heard, and everybody begins to contribute even with their vision. That we needed more access to everything, really, that needed to be more equitable access to government, to jobs, to healthcare, to education, to everything, because that seems to have changed with the social contract, that more people with more means had more access, and that everybody else kind of was denied access systematically and then just by default. And that one of the ways to begin to repair that was a living wage, where your basic ideas were met, that this was actually a way to honor people who are contributing to society, but maybe their contribution is that they're able to flip burgers at McDonald's, as opposed to them being a scientist or something. But that anybody who's contributing and working should be able to have the dignity of a living wage. And when we talked about living wage, there were some questions about that. And because it varies by region, so obviously like New York City is a much different place than Asheville, and Asheville is a very different place than, say, Burnsville, or if you get further out into the country. And one of the ways that it was defined that I had heard in other places was that it's sort of what you would need to survive if you were a single person with a one-bedroom apartment, reasonable transportation, and decent food or healthy food, and benefits or not benefits. And so people have fleshed that out, but it wasn't something we spent lots of time on. But we could spend more time on this, and I think this needs to be, and we talked about this as being more of a conversation, a national conversation. And a big part of it was that we were wanting to change this whole idea of I'm in it for me to this collective idea that we are responsible and responsive to one another. And that, if it's not just about everything you can get and everybody else sort of doesn't matter, that we are all in this together, and that if we want to live in a community, we need to really take a look at how we have this collective experience of democracy, of economics, and of life. Okay.
Remember to return to sip the waters off.